Hi everybody, welcome to week 8 material. This week we are going to be building our very own character foundations. And I'm going to be showing you two ways across the next two videos. So to begin, let's go ahead and do some setup work. And finally, we will generate a cube. This cube, very specifically, I'm going to have it 3 subdivisions for the height. Perfect. Our setup work is complete. Now, as part of the ultimate theme of this class, that there are many ways of doing the exact same thing in Maya, we're going to push that to its limit and make this character foundation 2 different ways. The first one is going to involve heavily extruding our basic cube here to create the shape that we want. So let's go ahead and begin. I'm going to begin by taking the Y and scaling that up to 2. The Z, I'm going to push down to 0.6. The reference images I'm not going to work with too directly. They're something that I'm actually going to rely more on in the end, when I'm actually putting the final finishing touches on the character. So in fact, for now, I'm actually going to go ahead and hide the images that I have. All right, I'm going to go ahead and press G on my keyboard to repeat my extrude action. Got a neck. Do it again. Base of the head. G to do it again. Next up, I'm going to just quickly double check what we have so far. Basic, but it's starting to become vaguely shaped. Next, I'm going to select one face here, and I'm going to enter my modeling toolkit and actually use something we haven't used yet, which is called symmetry. And I'm going to activate it for object X. And now, if I were to say extrude, it will symmetrically extrude the face on both sides. So let's go ahead and undo this real fast and do it again. I have my symmetry object X activated, so I'm going to extrude. Let's go down here now. I'm going to extrude this just a bit. Next up, let's make our basic legs. I'm going to select just one of these faces here. And I'm again going to do Control E to extrude. I don't want to just extrude from the normal. I would rather extrude down like this. There we go. Now I need to straighten them out, flatten them, which can be done just by selecting all the vertices here, and then scaling non-uniformly, like so. That will straighten them out easily enough. There are other ways of doing this. For example, you can grab one at a time and snap to points, and that'll do the job as well. Again, it's Maya, so lots of ways of doing the exact same thing. Okay, basic outline is finished thanks to extruding. So let's make some adjustments now. Namely, I want to take this. Let's focus in on the hands next. We'll switch on over to face mode and get out of the multi-cut tool by going back to selection mode and selecting our face here at the very end. We're going to control E and go to the top view. Again, notice for this kind of work, you want to constantly be going back and forth across different orthographic views and the perspective view all the time. That should be okay. We're just guesstimating at this point. I'm going to take a look at my reference images at the end when I'm making all the actual details after the actual person has been made. For now, I want to call your attention to the next thing that I'm going to do, which is going to be to use the multi-cut tool. But instead of creating an entire edge loop like I have been, instead of just doing this and creating a whole edge loop like that, instead, I am just going to create one edge right here at the end, right in the middle. Now you'll notice that this creates a bit of a problem in the short term, i.e. this face now has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sides, as opposed to the traditional and mostly necessary 4 or 3 sides. This is something that's going to be resolved later when we get to the end of this and actually smooth it out. Smoothing it out will add geometry here and will actually fix this n-gon for us. So don't worry about it too heavily right now, but just know that we are creating an n-gon here and we are doing it on purpose with the expectation that when we smooth it out later, it's going to be okay. Let's go ahead and select these two faces now. Extrude them. Now let's go ahead and do the same thing again. We're going to create more geometry. That is going to result in n-gons, but again, when we actually get to smoothing this towards the end, it'll be okay. Let's extrude again. This time, oh, no, not the multi-cut, turn that off. This time all 4 of these faces. Instead of keep faces together on, I'm going to turn it off. I'm not going to press G to repeat my action. I'm going to remain with the same extrude and just push this out a bit. A little bit of taper at the end. Now I'll go ahead and press G to repeat my action and do a brand new extrude. Around around there, maybe a little further, like that. Let's also add in some divisions. There we go. Let's also, oh, go. Let's also add in taper. And let's select push that back a bit. There we go. Looking at this from the top, our fingers do look very salad fork-esque. So let's go ahead and fix and adjust the sizes of each fingers, because obviously if you look at your actual hand, you'll know that your fingers are not of the same equal length. So let's go ahead and finish adjusting that. I'm going to select all of these vertices, and with just these various components selected, I'm going to press D to move my pivot point for these components, because you can do that as well. And I'm going to scale down. And then I'm going to do the same for these. Press D to move my pivot to the base of the finger. D again to lock that in. And then I'm going to just scale up a little bit. There we go. Now let's go ahead and focus in on the thumbs. And making the thumbs is going to be just a little bit more vibes based. So I am just going to select this face here. Okay, and we can make more adjustments later. Next, jumping back to our hands briefly, I'm noticing that I had this very weird bump up that I don't actually need. Just going to eyeball it and bring it back down to basically even playing field there. Next, I'm going to add in more geometry to create a wrist. Continuing on, let's add in some geometry here. We'll notice when we smooth out the feet that it looks very, we lose a lot of definition on the edges there. So we're going to go ahead and select the faces down here and extrude them just via some scaling, just a little bit, so that we don't lose that definition anymore. Bring in my reference images. And begin tweaking further. ultimately a little rudimentary, especially around the hands. But I'm pretty happy with this for a 30-minute-ish project. I'm going to go ahead now and just smooth it out completely. I've been using the smooth tool all throughout, but now I'm just going to finally stamp it down and make this the final version of my character foundation here. I don't need my reference images anymore, so I'm going to get rid of them. I'm also going to get rid of my layer. I'm going to call this character foundation extrudes, because this is the character foundation built via the extrude method. You will notice, by the way, now that I've smoothed, if we go back over to the hands here, those n-gons that I mentioned before are all gone. They're now replaced with proper four-sided faces. Same thing with the pelvis area. There was a big n-gon there as well, but that's also been replaced with proper four-sided faces. All right. Ultimately, a little rudimentary, but that is a way of building a character foundation. That is one of two ways that you can build a character foundation. There's multiple ways, but one of two ways that I'm going to show you of building a character foundation. One of the things that I used as I was going through and making my fine-tuning was the soft selection tool, which is yet another tool. I'm going to turn off the symmetry now. Soft selection tool is yet another tool in the modeling toolkit that you can use that we haven't talked about yet. Basically, you just turn it on, and you can select a single vertice or a single edge or a single face, or a selection of vertices and edges and faces, and it will move around not just the specific things that you selected, but the area around them as well. This is very good for, especially when you're working with smoothed out models, if you want to continue editing them. This is a great way of continuing to move pieces around in your geometry. So, for example, I'll just grab these vertices, because let's say I wanted to adjust this a little bit more. Let's go into the front view. Let's say I wanted to grab these vertices because I wanted to adjust them a little bit more. I can do so, and with the soft selection tool, I can increase my value by just typing in a number here, or by holding B, and like a brush, I can just make the soft selection bigger. And now, when I move this around, it's also going to affect the vertices in the area of my brush. This is a great way of making changes to models after you have smoothed them out. But that is something that we're going to cover in more detail in later videos. This is just something I introduced now briefly as I was doing the fine-tuning for this, but it's something that we're going to actually, the soft selection is something we're going to actively discuss more heavily in later videos. For now, I'm going to go ahead and delete my history. I'm going to modify my transforms, center my pivot. The last thing I want to tell you is that especially for character modeling, if you want to see how your characters are going, whether it's a basic character foundation like this or something more something more involved and with a very specific kind of art style, you can take a look at what your model looks like just by pressing 7 on the keyboard to turn on all the lights. We don't have any lights, so instead we get this really cool silhouette effect, which is a great way of letting you know how your character is going. One of the basic principles of animation is that characters should have, especially in animation and in cartoons, characters should have a strong silhouette. So this is just a great way of just seeing where you're at with your model. And does your character have a strong silhouette? Yes or no. You can just check by turning on all the lights, and if you don't have any in the scene, then it will just create a silhouette. If you want to get back to the normal view, just go to lighting, default lighting, and we are back to normal. All right, that is it for this video. Next time we're going to do this again, but in a different way. So thank you very much. Bye-bye.